there are some really successful products at the moment. It just, when the interest rates come down, they'll be far more successful, because having a 7 or whatever in front of them and the interest rates takes a lot of that fun away. So that's unfortunately that challenge that we're all going through at the moment. We all wish that the Reserve Bank governor would just drop these rates. I said that to Radio NZ just on Monday this week, and in the afternoon bulletin they had. I'd love to see them lower. I'm not sure that the Reserve Bank governor is quite as agile. We have seen them drop in the UK and in Europe as well. Perhaps a little bit slower in other parts of the world, but it's a real shame that we haven't dropped them.
All right, welcome to the Auckland Investment Club. Today we've got David Whitburn, good friend of mine and business partner and author of Invest and Prosper with Property. And I'm happy to have you here again today, and welcome.
Great to be here. Yes, the book's an oldie, but a goodie. Many lessons from that too. So it'd be great to do this, share my love for property investment with you and the rest of the club.
Yeah, man, I really admire what you've done with your property building portfolio and all the hard yards you've done, and we'll get to some of that. And like Auckland Investment Club it's a community of motivated and inspired investors. The philosophy is shared knowledge and encouragement, and the club is about working hard to build up your wealth so that you can give back to the community. And we know that if you make a lot of money, it's because you're bringing value to the market. So, the way that I see you, David, above being just a friend and a mentor to me, is you used to be a lawyer, so I know you got the eye for detail. I won't hold that against you. You're an investor in property and a developer. You've been a property coach off and on over the years. You're a father, a husband, a community leader. How do you see yourself at the moment? Like you've just finished a big development. You're in your mid-40s, got a long way to go. Like,
absolutely.
What's your place?
It's tough. I hate pigeonholing it though. But it has to be done. Unfortunately, I am an investor predominantly. I do believe that it's important to do it, collecting assets, and over time, it's really important to make sure that sometimes things don't go right. So I want to have investments where I get paid to own them, so you have more money in the back pocket at the end of the month than you had at the start. So that's, to me, a really important part of investing, and building a portfolio up is a good way to do it. It's just that there are elements of business ownership there to do it, because whilst having these the more passive assets in terms of property, whether commercial or residential, they're fantastic to have and are the cornerstone of the Whitburn family assets. For academic interest, I do some things like expert witness work for litigation briefs on basically property and construction matters, which is a bit of fun and games to do that. I will occasionally help out and mediate the odd dispute that some people will have in a property or business joint venture that's gone not quite to plan, and otherwise I'll try to help and coach other people. I have sort of really more or less stopped mentoring. Might just do the help out the odd person that needs something there. Otherwise I might offer a strategy meeting, but that's certainly not the focus. Unfortunately, I'm a bit selfish with my time, so I haven't been able to give back as much by mentoring others, sadly.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll come around later when you've got your 100 million plus and you give back to the community.
Yeah. Well, I set up the Abide Charitable Trust recently, which is great, and that's going to help out community groups and churches to develop on their land, and that's something that I think is quite good. It's always sad when they just sell a church to become a McDonald's, or sell a community, a group like a rugby club loses a field, they'll never get it back. So it's great to actually give them some redevelopment options and opportunities too. So that's something that's part of that giving back too.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about where you're at now and what investment goals you've got? Yeah,
absolutely. I've got a really solid portfolio. It's in excess of $20 million. I've kept the gearing extremely low, and what my goal is with that is that I get cash flow from it. So it takes the pressure off whilst could retire. There's no point in doing that. You just get really, really bored, and you need to be challenged, and you need to grow so you can actually make sure that you send the right messages out there to the kids. I'm blessed with 3 children. They're heaps of fun. And retiring would be a little churlish, and I wouldn't know what to do with myself if that's the case. So my goals are around continuing to build up cash flow, looking for opportunities, maybe distressed properties that I can add value to, and I still want to develop and work on the build to rent space. I think that looks quite exciting.
Yeah, build to rent certainly brings a lot of value into the market, and
Yes.
you're seeing some successful products out there.
There are some really successful products at the moment. It just, when the interest rates come down, they'll be far more successful, because having a 7 or whatever in front of them and the interest rates takes a lot of that fun away. So that's unfortunately that challenge that we're all going through at the moment. We all wish that the Reserve Bank governor would just drop these rates. I said that to Radio NZ just on Monday this week, and in the afternoon bulletin they had. I love to see them lower. I'm not sure that the Reserve Bank governor is quite as agile. We have seen them drop in the UK and in Europe as well. Perhaps a little bit slower in other parts of the world, but it's a real shame that we haven't dropped them yet.
Yeah. And tell us about your investment philosophies. You've been building a portfolio for over 20 years now.
Yes. Started way back in 2002, which was really exciting back in the days with $140,000 house prices in South and West Auckland, with big sites of over 800 square metres of abundance. So things have changed a lot, and it's not easy to do that and pull over 9% gross yields these days in Auckland. So I've had to really focus on this. But to me, cash flow is really important. I do think that cash flow is king. And this will actually be proven so when the debt to income ratios come through, what they're going to do when the interest rates come down. So they are through, but when the DTIs will be really important is as these interest rates come down. Perhaps the interest rates, a more neutral interest rate, might be more like 5 or 5.5%. When we're not at 7-ish%, that's it's going to start to make a material difference. It's not just cutting it 1.5 to 2%. It's making a huge cut of in excess of a third of what the actual outlay is from a profit and loss perspective. So with that cash flow, you're going to be retarding the growth of your portfolio if you go for capital growth only. So that means that you're going to get locked out of the property market a lot sooner. So it is important to make sure that you are creating both cash flow and equity, but the cash flow has to be there. And one of the great things about having positive cash flow is it immunises you against any adverse things in the market that may come up, such as interest rate spikes, loss of job, loss in earnings of your business, or whatever happens. So having that positive cash flow is never a bad thing. It's after all, it's the cash flow you spend. It's not always the most liquid thing. You can't always just sell it. Can be a bit of a challenge to refinance and get that revolving credit account to spend. So if you want to go and have that awesome holiday or buy that that lovely car, jewellery, whatever it is, it's the cash flow that you should be spending that from. So so definitely it's one of my main things is make sure that you've got a good, strong, positive cash flow portfolio. There are investors that have some really huge portfolios in excess of $40 million that are actually quite heavily leveraged. So by having running at like 50% LVRs and having some high interest rates attached to it means that they're actually not generating terribly much cash flow at all. And
just a lot of stress.
Unfortunately, it's causing quite a fair bit of stress, and then they're selling them at not the greatest prices to actually start to erode some of that equity. So having that cash flow, I think, is really important, but don't get me wrong, having the equity is important too. They're all building blocks to take you from your journey to your destination, and you've got to put them all in there. Properties are units of cash flow and equity at the end of the day. How do you scaffold that over from one side to the other? That's the exciting part. Yeah,
and I'm guessing investments that you're most proud of would include kind of combinations of cash flow and capital gain?
Yeah, absolutely. Cash flow and capital gain combinations are absolutely fantastic to do. I'm actually most proud of the childcare centre that I've got out West Auckland, because it was a challenging transaction in property to deal with, to negotiate, getting a resource consent. It was limited notified, just as many are with traffic and noise impacts on neighbours, and so getting that through was good. Felt it was technically demanding, so I felt good about doing that. Divesting the 3 houses as surplus land, too big for the area of the centre otherwise. So that was great, and then being able to put the profits from the development of those 3 houses into the long-term buy and hold. That's been a fantastic project there, and having a good stable operator as the tenant, which serves the community and the many kids in it. That's fantastic, and it's a good stable investment. You have a net lease with it. Brand new building, it's very low on its repairs and maintenance costs, both for the tenant and indeed my structural repairs and maintenance obligations as landlord. So that's been my best investment from that. So yeah, it's a commercial property one, but I am starting to move my portfolio to be more aligned to commercial property and residential. I think their elements of both are fantastic. I am just a little bit worried that future potential governments may have an impact on this.
Capital gains, yeah.
I'm not as worried about capital gains, and there's a reason for that. I'm not thinking of selling them.
Yeah.
So I won't be taxed on the capital because they're in trusts or companies that are there, and as a result, they can live forever, even if the unthinkable happens, and I'm to die arguably before my time. But it's not that; it's the interest deductibility rules.
Yeah.
That was a bit of an ambush. That takes a little bit of fun out of things. Potential wealth taxes as well. I believe there was Green Party policy to consider the implementation of a wealth tax on assets over $2 million, including the family homes. Obviously, those rich people need to pay their fair share and their dues to society. And
there'll be a lot more people renting from entities they own.
Yes,
potentially.
Yes, it would be interesting to see what happens with that. But there's a significant chance that there'll be some more adverse tax legislation that comes through. So, and unfortunately, residential property is more likely to get tinkered with than commercial property. So that's a reason for increasing exposure to commercial property and not I wouldn't say decreasing it, but not being as focused on increasing it.
Yeah. And what about investments you've kind of fallen into that you wish you'd never done?
This is a great question, and when I saw it, I was thinking there are just so many, because I used to get a bit stuck and do a bit of paralysis by analysis because, my lawyer always worried about risk and what could go wrong, but sometimes it's more important to think about what could go right. And if you've got your professional team, and if you perhaps grow a spine and actually override your lawyer and accountant, from then you might have been able to do some mega deals. So back in the good old days, there was a flat in Victoria Avenue in Remuera just at $280,000. I could have picked it for just 20 years ago. And it's unfortunately, I got a bit gun shy at the time, thinking, I can't really get it much below value. It's a shame that it's since been on sold at $1.25 million there, and that would have been a nice one to have, a positive cash flow unit in luxurious Victoria Avenue, Remuera. It's just a short walk from Remuera Road and the shops. That was a regretted choice soon after turning away from that. I didn't fully understand the property cycles at that stage, so in terms of the booms, the downturns, and the recovery phase of the cycle either. So that missed out, and then there are too many numerous ones to mention there that I'd not like something in the earlier stages and just be worried about a little feature that really wasn't going to be the be all and end all, like bedrooms being too small, having a backyard that is 30 square metres shorter than what it needed to be when the zones started to change, even before the unitary plan came through. So there are all sorts of silly little reasons like that. One of them had a massive tree that I could have cut down for $3,000 that wasn't a scheduled notified tree, and that would have been a beautiful development site. So many reasons.
Missed opportunities, but there's always tomorrow's deal.
There's always tomorrow's deal. Just that's a good thing that I think I did. I didn't beat myself up too much. I kept moving on to do it, and but the paralysis by analysis is unfortunately a regretted choice, because I'm not too sure what is the perfect deal. I don't know if there's ever quite such a thing as the perfect deal. So sometimes close enough's good enough, and they're all great deals.
Yeah, close enough's good enough. If it's going to take you 6 months or 12 months to find the next opportunity, sometimes it's, if you've got capital ready and
better to take action. Absolutely, and don't be scared. Just do it. Yeah, absolutely.
And what about your strategies for finding deals? I know you've paid people to help you with that in the past, and sometimes you find your own deals. And
absolutely, it's important if you are going to find your own deals to make sure that you're an expert in the area. You really got to know the area you're looking at, the types of properties to do, just so you're not going to make mistakes, and it can know the market. You know when a good deal's coming up. And I found that when I was highly active in the residential property space, I was able to get, be a sleevey of the agents. They'd have my number up their sleeve to be the go-to person to call, and that was a lot of fun doing that, because I know there, have my financial prep ready, could take action quickly. And for some in real estate, it can be quite a fast thing there. It's a tough profession there. I can't tell you that every agent's going to follow their office rules to the letter. So some may well get a listing and may well call you before they have the opportunity to load it up to let the rest of their office know on that. So it's great to just be there and ready to take action in that short time frame that you've got to do it, take the action and help your agent lock the deal so they get both the listing agent commission and the selling agent commission. It's crucially important to know that there are two things there and you want to get both of them. And sometimes if you're not able to do that, it's only so long that an agent can hold on to a listing for. It's important to make sure that that you're there ready to do it. Now, using property finders or buyers agents, that's another area too. So for many people, you're going to be busy making money in your work, often unable to do much outside during work hours, and just being a lunchtime, evening, weekend finder can be a little bit of hard work. So that's where it can be great to do that, and also just even outside of that, acknowledging the skills that others have, their networks and their skills. So I think there's a real space for that. Speed of the deals, great deals. There's a little bit of a comfort factor that they can often screen these deals for you. So yeah, absolutely. I'm very happy to pay finders fees if they've got the right deal. It's I think it's a fantastic way to do things.
And what outlook do you have for yields and interest rates over the next 5 years? This is
Yeah, I mean the average Auckland gross yields are pretty terrible. It's something like 3.3% gross at the moment. So when you take off our operating expenditure, that's our rates, insurance, provision for repairs and maintenance, etc. That's it's not a great place to be in the sub 3% rate when you've got interest rates at in general 7 point something. So it's a bit of pain that really you haven't, but the Reserve Bank governor, despite being stubborn and in his adherence to the 1 to 3% inflation rate target band, we're at 4.0% now, not that far away. Perhaps in November we'll see a drop in the official cash rate, but probably just precipitating that. I think we may start to see some of these rates head down before then. They might even start getting cut in September, so that would be pretty exciting to do. But I think we'll see more material cuts from February 2025, and then the longer term, I think that we'll head to a more normal interest rate, which may be something like 5.5%. But it might be the new normal. It is prone to government expenditure. Some macroeconomic policies, what's going on overseas, does have an impact increasingly. So it's a hard one to pick, and I've been wrong on this one before, but I firmly think that if you budget for something like 5 to 5.5% in the long run, that might actually serve you well. It might just take another 2 years to get down to those levels, because it takes a while to wash through the system, and they know what happened in the wake of COVID and all the spending there. Basically gave a lot of petrol put onto the bonfire. So as a result, all that money that was created, it did debase the currency. It did cause a lot of pain, and it, despite the attempts to close the gaps between the rich and the poor, it's just accelerated them to levels that we've never seen in our economy. So that was interesting. So interest rates 5 to 5.5%, and perhaps taking 2 years to get down to 5% this interest rate cycle. The yields, they will slowly but surely creep up, but there's a catch in that they're often quite linked with wage inflation. So we can't see them, and we don't see them rise quite so much. There's only so much that people can pay in terms of as a percentage of their household income. So I think that that the rental growth will help, but in terms of the yield, I think the housing prices. My thoughts are that housing prices have little room to grow. If anything, there might be some very minor downward pressures in the wake of the bright line rule going from 10 to 2 years. So if you know of a few investors in the Auckland Property Investors Association networks, and just my general networks, that are just a few of them are selling, and there are more people that I know that are interested in selling than buying right now. So I believe that the economic laws of supply and demand will take place.
It is a buyer's market, yep.
It's a buyer's market.
More pressure on prices going down than up right now.
Yeah, nothing major. It might just be like a 0 to 2% fall over the sort of next 6 months or so, and then there's some minor positive price movement with interest rates lower as well.
I'm not surprised if the prices fall below the 10-year trend line. So if you think pre-2020 and then through 21, the trend line went above the average. Then now it's dropped back down to more closer to the trend line. Actually can dip below the trend line before it goes back up. So,
but will we see the yields getting over 5%? Probably not in Auckland. Across the rest of the country, the yields are very different. Places like Tauranga, the yields are similarly strained like in Auckland, but there are some strong regions as well, the likes of Whangarei, Palmerston North, and Hawke's Bay was starting to see some really good yields and increasing as well. So I do see some things there, and I see more investors actually, as the interest rates start to lower, they'll increasingly go and looking for that regional cash flow because they're going to be locked out of the main cities.
Yeah, I mean, the value is in the regions. If you're willing to get out and do the work and spot the opportunities, and you're going to get a lot more opportunity for value add and for the yield.
Absolutely. Multi-income will be an increasingly popular strategy going forward as well. With the DTIs, they'll actually be quite significant. In fact, there'll be more of a restriction on the market than the LVR ratios were.
Well, certainly with the relocatables and the new rules around cabins and the granny flats, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Plenty of places around the country that you can find a bit of land on the back or front of somebody else's house and put one down. And
true right. It's the cornerstone of my property strategy in the mid-2000s in particular, to take a section with big land, and big land was over 600 square metres, because then as they were then, the Manukau City Council, that's East and South Auckland, and Waitakere City Council, West Auckland is areas you're able to do these minor dwellings, and in Rodney District as well. But in South and West Auckland, I was able to build some really good wealth by buying the properties and basically building it. At the start, there's no development contribution nor water, no such thing as water care, so there could be no water care infrastructure growth charge. So able to genuinely get 2 income streams for the price of 1.5, and they were little pocket rockets. They created equity every deal and good cash flow, and in many cases I was able to recycle my deposit and a little bit more, so I get paid to own them and still have great positive cash flow. That was great. So that was such a good strategy, and able to repeat that numerous times over. Yeah,
and the concept of that is still kind of can be applied today. It's just a bit slower.
It's a lot slower, more costly, and not quite 1.5 in general, unfortunately.
And so what do you think people getting started, maybe they own one property, maybe they haven't got that first one yet, what sort of capital and steps should they be starting to think about for that first property or first investment?
It's so hard because so many investors because of the capital bias towards new builds, their first property is a new build, and they do that because I guess they've been led that way by government policy, being exempt for all sorts of things to do it. So that's the dominant strategy. Without that, you're going to have to save a much higher deposit, and that puts it out of reach for so many. But I'd still encourage you to try to do that, because it's still the properties with land that's the scarcity of the land that is the fundamental value driver.
Yeah.
It's really hard to add value to a brand new terraced house or apartment. You'll find that the developers, as nice as they are, they typically don't want to give you too much equity in it. They want to maximise their profits. So they'll be selling it at the market. So therefore, it's better to try to, if you can go and potentially even with some friends or family members, to try to buy something with a bit of land to it. That's actually quite exciting. Can do it up.
Yeah, I mean, if you're buying your first house and you're able to work remotely or travel a little bit, something a bit further out, partnering with somebody else to get something that needs a bit of work seems to be a better strategy than a new build that's fully priced and going to get run down within 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does. I mean, it does depend. If you aren't going to be able to get the money in there, you sometimes have to get that new build. Then just have to then be a little bit careful of the timing of the market. It might not be the best thing to buy in peak booms phases of the property cycle. Unfortunately, as many have in 2021 and 2022, it's hard to exactly know when the cycles are going to end. So don't beat yourself up if you're one of the listeners to this podcast that have bought in those times, because surely as day follows night, things will get better. There'll be another property boom coming through, and that equity that you may think that you've lost, well, it's not crystallised. You haven't sold it. It'll come back again, and that should be okay. But there is a role for a new build in portfolios, but there's also a role for add value strategies as well. And some of it will depend on your times and your own skill sets and what your mortgage broker is able to say that you can and can't do.
Yeah. And so where do you go for your information for researching property and learning about the value-added strategies?
I read widely. It's really important to keep up with what others are doing. So read magazines in Australia, from the UK, from the USA, get on the internet, do it. Still do things like look at Business Desk, Herald, Staff, MBR, whatever. So those ones are great. Property Investor magazine too is helpful, but otherwise networking with other investors. Like Gary Andrew, that sees so many people and so many clients there. It's great to do it, but having a good network of people that are out there in the market throughout the country is a great thing, because then you're able to understand what pains are seeing, get to see some trends, some interesting things that happen early on. And by having that, it's important to actually get that knowledge. It's the same when adding that to friends that are valuers, agents, bankers. You just get that exposure.
You want to be hanging out with property people or investment people as much as you can.
Absolutely, because then you know what's happening, what some of the trends are, some of the changes in policy and how they relate to you. And on a smaller, micro deal, sometimes there might be a mega deal that someone needs to place really quickly. And if you're that lucky person that's ready to pounce and buy it, then good on you, grab it.
Yeah, I mean, you had a long association and still do with Auckland Property Investors Association.
I love the Auckland Property Investors Association. It's a fantastic place. I was its president for 4 years. They humbled me with life membership, and I was really proud to grow and serve it. And I think it's a tremendous resource that, quite frankly, all Auckland property investors should be a member of for sort of give or take $300 a year. That's just tax deductible. You can get access to Apia TV, which is a great resource with so many commentaries and bulletins and information on it. The videos that it's got are phenomenal. They record all of their keynote meetings, many of their local meetings. They've got nearly 100 meetings a year, and discounts. So save 10 times that on the NZPIF card that they're affiliated to at Bunnings. So I think it's a great place to do it and to keep networks up.
Yeah, and the likelihood, if you're putting yourself out there, of meeting another investor that will help you with things is very high. There's a lot of people that want to help.
Just have to do it, talk, let them know as well. A lot of people, there's a lot of wisdom in that, and I think it's one of the great things about it, to go through some challenges, and there's always someone there that's willing and able to help.
Yeah, well, you've talked about avoiding retirement, and we know how you feel about income and equity. What sort of lessons have come from your mentors and coaches? Have you paid people in the past to help you out, or you've worked with people kind of on a friendly kind of basis? And
I haven't actually paid for a mentor. I've paid to do some courses, I guess, but none of it's been on a one-on-one thing. But I have certainly got advice. I guess I've paid lunches and dinners to some very seasoned investors. So in that sense, I have, but no, I haven't actually had a mentor like that. But I have given back and done mentoring for others, and that has in the past been a great way of learning, particularly my one-on-one mentoring courses that I used to do. That was quite involved. It was well, as it should be. I charged $50,000 for that service, so you'd expect to get some results. So I made sure I gave a $100,000 guarantee that if I don't make you at least $100,000, then you can double your money, so your 50 grand becomes 100. If I haven't made you increased your value by 100,000 since you started with me, so that way I think was good to make sure that you're accountable and you're going to operate really well, so you can prove performance. And that one I'd be able to make sure that we could have the right tools to put down a portfolio, set up the strategy. Working in with a really good mortgage broker was always important to that. Your financial strategy and your property strategy are, of course, intertwined, and your property strategy is only as good as what your finance strategy is. Otherwise, you can say that you want to buy 40 properties or something like that, whatever that may be, is that 40 little units just out of my uncle's hometown in Invercargill that are storage shed units at 8,000 each. Maybe that's 40 tenancies, or is it you're owning some $40, $100 million commercial properties? So it's not the number of properties. Firstly, it's units of cash flow and equity is what you're talking about, and that's something that I think is really important to channel in, and that's what I like to teach people there about property. It's something that you don't really want to get emotionally attached to. So what can it get for you? Well, it can get you cash flow, it can get you equity, and through growth in both of them. So cash flow, equity, growth. So how's your income going to grow? How's the equity going to grow over time? And those are the three elements there. They're your pillars for your property investment portfolio building, and it doesn't have to be made that hard. And that's something that in the past, when I was active in the mentoring coaching space, that I just try to distill things and sort of declutter on that, and just find a way to do it, cut through to the chase to move it on. And how's the property going to be measured in terms of its cash flow now, its equity now in terms of discounts below value so it's true equity that you can tap into with minor changes, and then what's the growth likely to be? Yeah.
And how do you feel about syndicates at the moment? It's a tough time for a lot of syndicates. They're kind of...
Yeah, there's some amazing syndicates out there. I think syndicates are a good way to pull money to buy assets that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do. It can be hard just sometimes exiting them, particularly in property downturn phases there. So that can be a problem. Some of the larger syndicates are great to do it, but I wish more of them would have a more active secondary market and have an ability to actually interchange the investments more easily. That would be something that's good. But I do think they're a good way to get people together to buy some truly amazing assets. You can buy some quite impressive streams of cash flow from them, have them professionally managed in a hands-off way by some experts. There's some real value in that too. I've invested in them before and have a small investment in a syndicate, and I think it's been going fantastically for me. So I'd be a hypocrite to discourage them, but just raising that secondary market if you wanted to get out of the investment, that's something there that perhaps needs to be worked on, which is something that we don't see with the listed property trusts.
Yeah. And how many properties or listings of properties do you think you would look at before you execute on a decision?
Used to be truckloads, like many dozens, but I got a lot better and more efficient at it. In terms of looking at them, sometimes it might just be tapping into relab.co.nz and on my pro subscription and doing that. Now that's just a little bit of a skim, I suppose. It's a look in that, but it's something that may be more likely to be sort of 4 or 5 to 1.
Yeah.
Now,
and it might have in the beginning been 100 to 1 or even more.
It would have possibly been even more in the beginning. I know I'm feeling old now, but back in the day, you'd have to go to a branch manager and then they'd open up a special drawer in their own filing cabinet in their office to open up maybe a CD of their photos to do it for that. Yeah. The listings, they'd often be put, some of them even printed in A3, but yes, the web marketing wasn't there. So
be on the Herald or... Yeah.
Yeah, it became important. The property press, unfortunately, lost what a legacy they had for goodness, nearly 40 years. It became a dinosaur and it disappeared just last year. So in those days, property press and places like the Herald were important, and you'd actually pay extra money to do it, and they'd print the photos in A3, put them in the manager's office to do it, or the actual board of the real estate agencies. Internet viewing wasn't really a thing. That was just all this high tech thing. Some of them
the agents had more power.
Agents had a lot more power. Absolutely. Yeah. Private sales were a little bit of a joke back then. Companies like Home Sell have done really well in the private sales space through the internet, and their professionalism and photography as well makes a massive difference. So that's been an interesting change and a really good change.
Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to add if you want to help people to on their investment journey?
When you're on your investment journey, make sure that you're there. You're checking in with others to see how you're going, and make sure that you're constantly refining your finance strategy, looking at your borrowing capacity, thinking of ways you can build more, because you might as well go hard, make that short-term sacrifice now to save that extra bit harder to try to do it, get ahead, maybe get another property that's going to help you get ahead in the future. I think that's something there that I think is a really good idea to do it. So make sure that you're checking in with your financial advisor to really get see what you can do, so you can get your own targets done and just tweak them. I think it is a bit harder than when I started nowadays. I really do, because the rates well, it's not actually the interest rates that do that.
It's the income to price ratios,
affordability ratios, unfortunately. So it's just just grown up in terms of a multiple of
There's no point in complaining about it.
It is what it is.
It comes back to probably you need to have a little bit more volume of activity and look at joint venture.
Absolutely. For some, it may even be property trading. It's a bit scary doing that, but for some that want to take the plunge, it's a good way to actually get a bit of income, and can use the after-tax income there as deposits on properties as well, and keeping your VR down.
The successful joint ventures you've seen or been part of, what do you think was the key to success there?
The key to success is having a profitable property project always, but it's also important to have a good, strong joint venture agreement, because you need to know what both parties are bringing in. Is one party bringing in the capital? Are they putting in all the capital, some of it? Is that capital equity? Is it debt? Is it a loan? If that's not repaid in X time, is there a call option to sort of call that loan, take the other person's shares away? Who's managing it? What are they doing? What are their KPIs, so to speak, there, in terms of maybe if it's a development project, time, quality, on budget, those kind of things need to get put in and recorded, so the joint venture, everyone knows where they stand and what's required of them, who gets what. I think those things are really important to get
decide in advance.
Done in advance. Too many people do that later on and make decisions without putting things in place, and unfortunately that can and often does cause issues in the future. So it is about being organised and thinking ahead.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining with me today, David. I'll put some more details in the description.
Cheers, Andrew.
And we're going to be doing more live events, and I'll make sure beg and hope and trying to drag you along to some of those things.
To beg, looking forward to being a part of it and meeting the club. It's been around for a few years. I just
we had a little break
in COVID.
Oh, good. Thanks, man.
Cheers, Andrew.